The alert sirens blared across the hegemony's central command station. Admiral Kang leaned forward in his chair, eyes fixed on the massive holographic display, showing his fleet of 7,000 vessels arranged in perfect defensive formation. "Status report," he demanded. "Human vessels expected to emerge from hyperspace in 3 minutes." "Admiral," reported Commander Lee. "All defense systems are ready." The intelligence had been clear. After months of failed negotiations and rising tensions, the humans had finally committed to war. The hegemony spy network had intercepted communications indicating a massive fleet was en route to their homeworld. 2 minutes to emergence, announced Lee. Admiral Kang straightened his uniform. This would be the defining moment of his career, the day he defeated the upstart human race and cemented the hegemony's dominance for another 1,000 years. 1 minute. The bridge fell silent. 7,000 ships waited. Weapon systems hummed at full charge. Emergence detected. A small ripple appeared in the fabric of space. Admiral Kang leaned forward, expecting to see dozens, perhaps hundreds of warships pouring through. Instead, a single vessel emerged. "Where is the rest of their fleet?" Kang demanded. Commander Lee frantically checked her instruments. "There's nothing else, Admiral. Just the one ship." The vessel was sleek, smaller than their heavy cruisers, with strange angles that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. It bore the insignia of the Human Space Service, the HSS Retribution. "We're receiving a transmission," said Lee, confusion evident in her voice. The main screen flickered to life, displaying a human female in a crisp black uniform adorned with silver pins. "This is Captain Park of the HSS Retribution. I request immediate diplomatic parley with the Hegemony Council." Admiral Kang stared in disbelief. They had expected an army, but a single human ship showed up. The command center erupted in whispers. Kang raised his hand for silence. "Is this some kind of trick?" he asked, turning to his intelligence officer. Officer Sun shook his head. "Our scans detect no other ships in the vicinity, Admiral. No unusual energy signatures that might indicate cloaked vessels." Kang studied the image of the human captain on the screen. Her face showed no fear, only calm determination. This made no sense. The humans knew the hegemony's military strength. To send a lone ship was beyond foolish. It was suicidal. "Put me through," Kang ordered. The communication officer nodded. "Captain Park," Kang spoke, keeping his voice steady. "This is Admiral Kang of the Hegemony Defense Force. Your request for parley is unexpected, but not unwelcome, I hope," replied Park with a slight smile. "The matters we need to discuss are of the utmost importance to both our peoples." "Where is the human fleet?" Kang asked directly. "Our intelligence indicated a substantial force." "I am the human fleet, Admiral," Park said simply. Laughter rippled through the command center before Kang silenced it with a glare. "You expect me to believe Earth sent a single ship to confront the might of the hegemony?" "I don't expect you to believe anything without evidence," Park replied, "which is why I request an audience with the Council. Some things must be seen to be understood." Kang muted the transmission and turned to his advisors. "Opinions?" "It's clearly a trap," said Commander Lee. "The humans must have developed some new stealth technology. Their fleet could be all around us." "Our sensors would detect something," countered Officer Sun. "No cloaking technology is perfect." "Maybe they're buying time," suggested another officer. "Delaying while their real fleet assembles elsewhere." Kang considered these possibilities. None seemed entirely satisfactory. He unmuted the transmission. "Captain Park, you arrive in hegemony space uninvited, in what our government has declared a state of war, and expect diplomatic treatment." "Admiral," Park replied, "if war was our intention, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The HSS Retribution comes with the authority to negotiate terms that would benefit both humanity and the hegemony." "One ship cannot dictate terms to the hegemony," Kang said firmly. Park's expression remained unchanged. "With respect, Admiral, you don't yet understand what one ship can do. There was something in her tone that gave Kang pause. Not a threat, exactly, but an absolute certainty that sent a chill down his spine. You have 1 hour to present your case to me, Kang decided. Then I will determine if this matter warrants the Council's attention. Thank you, Admiral. I look forward to our meeting. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Order a detailed scan of that vessel, Kang commanded. I want to know everything about it. Power readings, weapons systems, unusual technology, and maintain battle readiness. As his crew rushed to obey, Kang studied the image of the lone human ship floating against the backdrop of stars. It seemed almost fragile compared to the massive hegemony warships surrounding it. What game are you playing, Captain Park? He muttered. An hour later, Kang sat in his private conference room. The door slid open, and 2 security officers escorted Captain Park inside. In person, she was shorter than he expected, but carried herself with unmistakable authority. Captain, Kang greeted her with a formal nod. Admiral, she returned the gesture. Thank you for agreeing to meet. I'm curious, Kang admitted as they sat down. Our scans show your ship is armed, but not heavily. You carry no planet-destroying weapons, no massive arsenal. Yet you face the combined might of the hegemony without apparent concern. Not all power is measured in firepower, Admiral. Then how is it measured, Captain? Park placed a small device on the table between them. It projected a hologram of a star system, the hegemony's central system. 3 days ago, we placed quantum observation devices throughout your system, she explained. They're undetectable by your technology. Kang's expression darkened. Spying is hardly a basis for negotiation. Not spotting, Park corrected. Insurance. She touched the device, and the hologram changed to show what looked like technical schematics. These devices can alter the quantum state of matter within a defined radius, Park continued. A demonstration might help you understand. She gestured to her security escort. May I? After a nod from Kang, the officer handed her a metal cup from a nearby table. Park placed it beside the hologram device and pressed a sequence. The cup shimmered for a brief moment, then collapsed in on itself, leaving only a fine dust on the table. Kang couldn't hide his shock. What did you do? Change the quantum binding properties of the metal, Park explained calmly. The devices throughout your system can do this on a planetary scale. Silence filled the room as the implications sank in. This is why one ship is sufficient. Admiral, the HSS Retribution doesn't need to outgun your fleet. We simply need to deliver our message. War between our peoples would result in mutual destruction. Kang stared at the dust that had once been a solid metal cup. The Council will see you now, Captain Park, he said quietly. Sometimes, the greatest strength comes not from having the largest army, but from changing the rules of engagement entirely. Captain Hannah Park stood alone in her quarters aboard the Retribution, staring at her reflection in the small mirror. Dark circles underlined her eyes, the result of too many sleepless nights since receiving her orders. Computer, playback Earth Command's final transmission, she said. The holographic display flickered to life, showing General Kim's stern face. Captain Park, the situation has deteriorated beyond peaceful resolution. The hegemony will not recognize our independence, and our intelligence indicates they're preparing for a full-scale invasion. We cannot match their numbers in conventional warfare. She mouthed the words along with the recording, having memorized them over countless viewings. The Retribution is our only hope. Project Sunburst is now operational. You are to proceed alone to the hegemony homeworld and convince them that further aggression would be unwise. The message ended as it always did, with the general's grim expression and final words. The fate of humanity rests with you, Captain. Good luck. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. Captain, the hegemony representatives have arrived in the communication chamber, announced Lieutenant Han. Park straightened her uniform. Very well. Let's see if they're willing to listen to reason. The communication chamber filled with the holographic projections of 3 hegemony officials, their tall, spindly forms towering over her. "This is highly irregular," stated the central figure. "I am High Counselor Jin. Explain the meaning of this solitary incursion." "High Counselor," Park replied with a formal bow, "I come representing the United Governments of Earth and her colonies. I'm authorized to negotiate terms that will prevent unnecessary bloodshed." Negotiate. Jin's translator conveyed his incredulity. With one ship, perhaps humans do not understand the concept of war. Captain Park allowed herself a small smile. "I believe it's the hegemony that has misunderstood. Allow me to clarify our position." After the communication ended, Park returned to her quarters. Her hands trembled slightly as she poured herself a glass of water. The weight of her mission pressed down on her shoulders like a physical burden. Lieutenant Han knocked on her door. "Captain, do you have a moment?" "Enter," she called. Han stepped inside, holding a datapad. At 32, he was 5 years younger than Park, but his eyes held the same weariness. "The Hegemony Council has agreed to formal talks tomorrow," he reported. "They're still scanning us continuously." "Let them scan," Park replied. "They won't find anything they can understand." Han nodded but didn't leave. "The crew is asking questions, Captain. They know we're the only ship, facing thousands. They're wondering if this is a suicide mission." Park finished for him. "Yes." Park turned to look at the small window showing the vast hegemony fleet surrounding them. "Tell them the truth, Han. Our mission is to prevent a war, not start one. But if we fail—" "I understand," Han said quietly. After he left, Park opened a hidden compartment in her desk. Inside was a small black cube, the control key for Project Sunburst. She turned it over in her hands, feeling its smooth surface. In the mess hall, the small crew of 15 gathered for their evening meal. They were an elite group, chosen specifically for this mission. Each was the best in their field, and each had volunteered knowing they might never return. Medical Officer Ba looked up as Han entered. "Any news, Lieutenant?" "Formal talks tomorrow," Han replied, filling his tray. "The captain says to tell you all the truth of our situation." Engineer Choi snorted. "The truth? We're sitting in a prototype vessel with experimental tech that might not even work, surrounded by the most powerful military force in known space." "The tech will work," said Science Officer Yan firmly. "I helped design it." "And if it doesn't?" asked Security Chief Du. Han sat down with his tray. "Then we saved Earth the cost of sending the entire fleet to their deaths." The room fell silent as they considered this. "To impossible odds," Weapons Officer Min finally said, raising his cup in a toast. The others joined in. "To impossible odds." In her ready room, Park reviewed the files on the Hegemony Council members. High Counselor Jin was known as a moderate, but the military faction led by Supreme Commander Nam had been pushing for aggressive expansion. The resource-rich human colonies were tempting targets. A gentle ping from her computer indicated an incoming message, this one encrypted on a channel only she could access. Park entered her authorization code. The face that appeared wasn't General Kim, but President Seoul herself. "Captain Park," the president said, her voice low. "This message will delete itself after viewing. There's something you need to know about Project Sunburst." Park listened intently, her expression growing more serious with each word. "I understand, Madam President," she said when the message ended. The screen went dark. Park sat in silence for several minutes, then pressed the intercom. "Han, please assemble the senior staff in the briefing room." 5 minutes later, Park faced her 5 most trusted officers. "Tomorrow's meeting will determine whether humanity has a future," she began. "But there's something you need to know about our mission." The officers exchanged glances. "Project Sunburst isn't just a defensive technology," Park continued. "It's the result of decades of research into quantum manipulation. If deployed, it wouldn't just destroy the hegemony. It would create a cascade effect that could potentially destabilize space-time throughout this entire sector. Shocked silence followed her words. So if we use it, Science Officer Yun began, we might save Earth from invasion, but at the cost of unknown consequences to the fabric of space itself. Park finished. It's a last resort that we cannot actually resort to. Then tomorrow, Han started. Tomorrow, we bluff, Park said simply. We convince the hegemony that we can and will use this weapon if pushed, while doing everything in our power to ensure we never have to. A bluff? Security chief who looked skeptical. Against beings who have mastered interstellar travel and warfare for thousands of years. Precisely because they have mastered warfare, Park replied. They understand mutually assured destruction. They'll believe we would use such a weapon because it's what they would do in our position. And if they call our bluff? Asked Weapons Officer Min. Park's expression hardened. Then humanity will be remembered as a species that faced extinction with dignity. But I don't intend to let that happen. The next morning, Captain Park stood before the holographic projections of the full Hegemony Council, 12 alien beings representing the most powerful empire in known space. High Counselor Jin spoke first. Captain Park, you claim to speak for all humanity. Yet you bring one ship to what could be the last meeting between our peoples. Park stood tall despite her fatigue. Sometimes, Counselor, one is all that's needed. Explain yourself, demanded Supreme Commander Nam, his translator barely masking his hostility. Humanity has always had to adapt to survive, Park began. Outmatched and outnumbered, we learned to think differently. Your civilization measures power in fleet size and territorial control. We measure it in innovation. She activated a holographic display showing the quantum device. What I'm about to show you will change everything you think you know about power in this galaxy. The council members leaned forward, expressions ranging from skepticism to curiosity. In that moment, Hannah Park carried not just the fate of humanity on her shoulders, but perhaps the fate of the galaxy itself. This is absurd, Admiral Kang hissed to his subordinates as they watched the lone human vessel from the bridge of his flagship. They send one ship and expect us to negotiate. The communication console chimed. Captain Park is requesting a demonstration zone in the uninhabited Dovo system, reported Commander Lee. A demonstration? Of what? She wouldn't specify, Admiral. Kang considered for a moment. Very well. Grant her request. Send a surveillance detachment to observe whatever foolishness they plan. 3 hours later, Kang and the Hegemony High Council watched the feed from the Dao system. The Retribution positioned itself near a small, uninhabited moon. What could they possibly? Began Counselor Jin. The transmission briefly distorted. When it cleared, the moon was gone. In its place was a swirling vortex of light and matter that collapsed upon itself in seconds. Silence fell across the command center. Analysis, Kang finally managed. The human vessel deployed some form of device that created a temporary artificial singularity, said Science Officer Yoon, her voice shaking. The gravitational distortion completely consumed the moon before the effect dissipated. The screen flickered as Captain Park's face appeared. The HS of Retribution carries 12 such devices, she stated calmly. Each one calibrated to target major hegemony worlds. We call it Project Sunburst. She let the statement hang in the air before continuing. Shall we discuss those terms now? The silence in the command center was absolute. The alien officials stared at the screen, their expressions ranging from shock to disbelief to fear. Supreme Commander Nam was the first to recover. This is a trick, he declared. Some kind of visual deception. Science Officer Yoon shook her head, her fingers moving rapidly over her control panel. The readings are real, Commander. The moon had a mass of approximately 8.3 trillion tons. It's simply gone. High Counselor Jin turned to Admiral Kang. Is this possible? Could one small ship carry such power? Before Kang could answer, Captain Park spoke again. I understand your skepticism, she said. In your position, I might feel the same. Perhaps another demonstration would help. No, several voices shouted at once. That won't be necessary, said Jin, regaining his composure. We've seen enough. Park nodded. The choice before you was simple. The hegemony can continue its planned aggression against human worlds, in which case we will be forced to deploy our sunburst devices, or we can establish new terms for peaceful coexistence. You would destroy yourselves as well, said Nam. Such weapons would create chain reactions affecting nearby systems, including your own. A slight smile appeared on Park's face. We've calculated those risks. Have you? On board the Retribution, Lieutenant Han stood just off camera, watching the exchange. When the transmission ended, he approached Captain Park. They're frightened, he observed. Good, Park replied. Fear can be a powerful motivator for peace. The device worked better than expected, said Science Officer Yan, joining them. The quantum collapse was complete. Not even dust remained. Park nodded. And the other 11 devices? Yan hesitated. Captain, as you know, we only have 3 functional devices. The others are empty shells. The hegemony doesn't need to know that, Park said quietly. Back in the hegemony command center, a heated debate was underway. We should strike now, before they can deploy more of these weapons, insisted Nam. Our combined fleet can destroy 1 ship, no matter how advanced, and risk 12 of our worlds, countered Trade Minister Ju. The human colonies aren't worth such a price, if they even have 12 devices, said Nam. This could be a bluff. Do you want to take that chance? Asked Jin. Even 1 such device deployed against our homeworld would be catastrophic. Admiral Kang had been quiet, studying the sensor data from the demonstration. He looked up. There's something else we should consider. The energy readings from the human ship during the demonstration were unusual. Explain, demanded Jin. The power surge was massive, yes, but brief, and immediately afterward, the ship's energy levels dropped significantly. It's as if... He paused. As if what, Admiral? Jin prompted. As if the deployment taxed their systems severely. They may need time to recover before they could use another device. Nam's eyes gleamed. Then we attack now, while they're vulnerable. Or, said Jin, we use this time to negotiate. Find out what they truly want. I agree with the High Counselor, said Kang. We should at least hear their terms. Nam scoffed. Since when does the mighty hegemony bow to threats from lesser species? Since that lesser species demonstrated the ability to destroy our worlds, Jin replied firmly. The debate continued as the hegemony leaders tried to process this new reality. Meanwhile, a small scout ship moved silently through the Doho system, investigating the site of the vanished moon. Captain Bai of Scout Vessel Harmony transmitted his findings directly to Admiral Kang's private channel. Admiral, I've completed my scans of the demonstration site. There's something you should know. Kang excused himself from the council meeting and moved to a private room. Report, Captain. The singularity didn't just consume the moon, sir. It created a permanent distortion in space-time. Small, but measurable. If such a weapon were used on an inhabited world, the effects would be far worse, Kang finished grimly. Yes, sir. And there's more. The human device appears to have left traces of exotic particles that are continuing to react with normal matter. In simple terms, it's as if they've created a wound in space that isn't healing properly. Kang's expression darkened. Keep this information confidential, Captain. Continue your scans and report any changes. When Kang returned to the council chamber, the debate was still raging. We've received a formal request from Captain Park, announced Communications Officer Gill. She's asking for our response to her offer of negotiations within the next 6 hours. After that, she says, the Retribution will consider our silence as rejection and act accordingly. Jin looked at the assembled leaders. We need to decide. Now. Nam stood. I say we attack. 1 ship cannot stand against our fleet, no matter what weapons it carries. Trade Minister Ju shook her head. The risk is too great. I vote we negotiate. One by one, the council members voiced their opinions. The vote was split, with 6 favoring negotiations and 6 favoring attack. All eyes turned to Admiral Kang, whose vote would break the tie. Kang thought of the wound in space described by Captain Ba. He thought of the billions of lives on the hegemony's core worlds. And he thought of the calm certainty in Captain Park's eyes. We negotiate, he said firmly. Nam slammed his fist on the table. This is cowardice. This is survival, Kang replied. Sometimes, the wisest course in battle is to recognize when you face a weapon you cannot counter. As the council prepared for formal negotiations with the human captain, Kang sent a private message to his fleet commanders. Maintain battle readiness, but take no aggressive action. The situation is more dangerous than it appears. Aboard the Retribution, Captain Park received word of the hegemony's decision with outward calm, but inwardly, she felt the first glimmer of hope. They've agreed to negotiate, she told her crew. Phase 1 complete. And if negotiations fail? Asked Lieutenant Han. Park looked at the 3 sunburst devices, the only 3 that existed in the universe. Devices that, if used again, might tear apart the fabric of space itself. Then we move to Phase 2, she said, and pray we all survive what comes next. The emergency session of the Hegemony Council erupted into chaos. We must strike immediately, shouted War Minister Choi, pounding his fist on the table. Before they can deploy these weapons, and risk immediate retaliation, countered Trade Minister Song. We've seen what one device can do. If they have 12 as claimed. High Counselor Jin raised his hand for silence. What exactly are the human terms? The holographic projection of Captain Park stood calmly in the center of the chamber. Recognition of Earth and all human colonies as sovereign and independent territories. A non-aggression pact lasting 50 standard years. Open trade routes through previously restricted hegemony space. These are our non-negotiable requirements. Preposterous, spat Choi. You dictate terms to the hegemony. A civilization that has ruled the stars for 10,000 years. Minister, Park replied evenly. We are not interested in your territory or resources. Humanity wishes only to exist without threat of annihilation. The choice before you is simple, peace or mutual destruction. Jin leaned forward. And if we simply destroy your vessel now? The Retribution's destruction would automatically trigger the sunburst devices, Park explained. Additionally, there are 3 other human vessels carrying similar payloads currently positioned near other hegemony worlds. Their captains have orders to proceed if I don't return. Jin's eyes narrowed. You bluff. Can you afford to take that chance, Counselor? Park asked softly. The chamber fell silent. Jin stared at the human captain, searching for any sign of deception. Her face remained calm, her posture straight and confident. Give us a moment to discuss, Jin finally said. The holographic transmission paused, leaving Captain Park's image frozen in the center of the chamber. She's lying, War Minister Choi said immediately. 3 more ships. Our sensors would have detected them. Not if they used the same stealth technology as the Retribution, pointed out Defense Minister Yu. We didn't detect it until it was directly in front of us. I want star charts, Jin ordered. Show me which hegemony worlds would be most likely targets. A large holographic map appeared, showing the 12 core worlds of the hegemony. Red markers indicated possible positions for hidden human vessels. If they target our primary worlds, said Resource Minister Back, the death toll would be in the trillions. Jin studied the map. The question remains, is Captain Park bluffing? Admiral Kang, who had been silent, finally spoke. I studied humans extensively during our conflicts. They have a trait we lack. They're willing to sacrifice themselves completely if they believe in their cause. You think they would actually use these weapons? Asked Jin, even knowing it might mean their own destruction. I think, Kang said carefully, That if we push them to the edge of extinction, they will take us with them. Jin considered this, reopened the channel. Captain Park's image unfroze. Have you reached a decision, Counselor? We need proof of these other vessels you claim exist, Jin demanded. Park nodded, a reasonable request. She looked down as if consulting something off-screen. The HSS Defiance is currently positioned near your colony world Saran. Captain Bai will transmit a coded signal to your outpost there in exactly 5 minutes. Jin motioned to a communications officer who quickly sent instructions to the Saran outpost. And while we wait, Park continued, I should clarify something. Humanity doesn't want war. We never have. Our colonies are peaceful. We mine asteroids and farm waters that you consider worthless. All we ask is to be left alone. Yet you threaten us with destruction, pointed out Minister Choi. Only after learning of your invasion plans, Park replied. Plans that would have resulted in billions of human deaths. Before Choi could respond, the communication officer interrupted. High Counselor, we're receiving a transmission from Saran Outpost. They've detected a signal matching the parameters Captain Park specified. Jin's expression remained neutral, but his fingers tightened around the edge of the table. Very well. Let us discuss your terms in detail, Captain. Park nodded. First, recognition of human sovereignty over all currently established colonies and a buffer zone of 5 light-years around each. 5 light-years is excessive, argued Resource Minister Back. It would cut off access to several mineral-rich systems. Systems you've never used, Park countered. Our surveys show they've been untouched for centuries. 3 light-years, offered Jin. 4, Park replied, with shared mining rights in disputed systems. Jin looked to Back, who nodded reluctantly. Acceptable, Jin said. Continue. Second, a non-aggression pact for 50 standard years, with automatic renewal unless either party gives formal notice. 20 years, said Defense Minister Yu. Technology and circumstances change too quickly for longer commitments. 35 years, Park said, with a review clause every decade. Yu whispered something to Jin, who nodded. We can agree to that. Third, open trade routes through hegemony space, with standard transit fees applied equally to all vessels, human or hegemony. This caused another stir among the council. Trade Minister Song leaned forward. Our differential fee structure is the foundation of our economic system. You ask too much. Your differential fee structure charges human chips 10 times what you charge your own, Park said. It's economic warfare designed to strangle our development. Song started to object, but Jin cut him off. We could establish a new category for human vessels, higher than member worlds but lower than non-aligned species. Park considered this. Acceptable if the rate is no more than twice your internal rate. 3 times, Song insisted. 2.5 times, and we'll agree to purchase transit permits in bulk, payable annually, Park offered. After a quick calculation, Song nodded. Acceptable. Jin looked around the chamber. Are there any other terms, Captain Park? Just one, she said. All hegemony surveillance outposts within 2 light-years of human space will be dismantled. This brought an immediate objection from Security Minister Du. Those outposts are essential to monitoring piracy and smuggling. Those outposts, Park said firmly, have been used to gather military intelligence on our defenses and technology. They are a direct threat to our security. Jin looked to Admiral Kang, who nodded slightly. We will relocate the outposts beyond the 2 light-year boundary, Jin offered, and provide you with their exact coordinates. Park seemed to consider this acceptable, with regular inspections to verify compliance. Jin nodded. Then we have the framework for an agreement. War Minister Choi stood abruptly. This is capitulation. I will not stand by while we surrender to human threats. We are not surrendering, Jin said sharply. We are avoiding a conflict that would benefit neither side. You're being deceived, Choi shouted. These humans are bluffing. I've received intelligence that... Minister Choi. Jin interrupted. You will be silent, or you will be removed. Choi looked around the chamber, seeking support. Finding none, he sat down, his face dark with anger. Jin turned back to Captain Park. We will prepare a formal treaty document incorporating these terms. It will require ratification by our full assembly and your... What is your governing body called? The United Earth Government, Park supplied. And yes, they will need to ratify it as well. Until then, Jin said, we propose an immediate stand-down of military forces on both sides. Park nodded. Agreed. The Retribution will remain in position as our representative until the treaty is finalized. And the other human ships? Jin asked carefully. They will maintain their positions as well, Park said, but will take no action unless provoked. After finalizing the details, the transmission ended. The council chamber remained silent for several moments. Do you believe her? Defense Minister Yu finally asked Jin. About the treaty? Yes, Jin replied. About the other ships and weapons? I'm not certain. But I believe she's convinced us to act as if they exist, which amounts to the same thing. A bluff within a bluff, mused Admiral Kang. Impressive strategy. As the council members filed out, War Minister Choi lingered behind with Admiral Kang. This isn't over, Choi said quietly. The humans must be hiding something. No species would risk everything on one ship. Perhaps, Kang replied. That's precisely why their gambit worked. Sometimes the most unbelievable strategy is the most effective. Aboard the Retribution, Captain Park collapsed into her chair once the transmission ended. Did they buy it? Lieutenant Han asked anxiously. Park ran a hand through her hair. I think so, but we're not safe yet. And the signal to Seran outpost? Asked Science Officer Yun. Timed perfectly, Park said with a small smile. Your remote probe worked exactly as planned. So we've bought time, Han said. But what happens when they discover there are no other ships? When they realize we only had 3 sunburst devices, not 12? Park looked at him steadily. By then, the treaty will be signed, and history will remember this as the day one ship saved humanity without firing a single shot. But as she turned to look out at the vast hegemony fleet still surrounding them, she wondered if they would all live long enough to see that day arrive. 23 hours into the negotiations, proximity alarms blared throughout the Retribution. Captain, Lieutenant Han called out, 3 hegemony destroyers have broken formation and are approaching with weapons hot. Captain Park's expression remained unchanged. Defensive systems only. No countermeasures. The bridge crew exchanged worried glances but followed orders. The first salvo of hegemony weapons fire struck the Retribution's shields, which flared brilliant blue but held steady. Sir, reported Han, their weapons are having no effect. Shield integrity at 98%. Park opened a channel. Admiral Kang, control your forces or I will consider this an act of war. On the hegemony flagship, Kang was already shouting orders. Commander Tae, you will stand down immediately. Who authorized this attack? War Minister Choi. Sir, came the reply. He said the human vessel must be destroyed before. Cease fire, Kang roared. All vessels, cease fire. The attacking destroyers hesitated, then withdrew. Captain Park's image appeared on Kang's screen. A wise decision, Admiral. Captain Park, Kang replied stiffly. On behalf of the hegemony, I apologize for this unauthorized aggression. Hours later, in the Grand Assembly Hall of the hegemony capital, Captain Park and High Counselor Jin signed the Treaty of Mutual Recognition. The document granted humanity everything they had requested: sovereignty, security, and open trade routes. As Park prepared to return to her ship, Jin approached her privately. You risked much coming here alone, Captain, he observed. Park met his gaze steadily. Sometimes one must risk everything to avoid losing everything. Indeed. Jin paused. Our intelligence suggests the Retribution is the only vessel of its kind. That your Project Sunburst was a desperate gamble with your sole prototype. Park's expression revealed nothing. History will record only what happened, Counselor. That they expected an army, but a single human ship showed up. Back aboard the Retribution, as they prepared for the journey home, Lieutenant Han approached his captain. "Do you think they'll honor the treaty?" he asked. Captain Park looked out at the stars. "They will. They've seen what humanity is capable of when cornered." She didn't add what only she and a handful of others knew, that the Retribution's weapon systems had been operating at minimal capacity, that the other 3 ships didn't exist, and that Project Sunburst's success had been beyond their wildest hopes. Sometimes, the appearance of strength was more important than strength itself. "Set course for Earth, Lieutenant," she said. "We're going home." In the aftermath of the attack, War Minister Choi was placed under house arrest. Admiral Kang personally escorted him from the council chambers. "You've committed an act of treason," Kang said coldly. "You nearly started a war that could have destroyed us all." "I was trying to save us," Choi insisted. "The humans were bluffing. I'm certain of it." "We'll never know," replied Kang. "And that uncertainty is precisely why your actions were so dangerous." As security officers led Choi away, High Counselor Jin joined Kang in the empty corridor. "Do you think he was right?" Jin asked quietly. "About the humans bluffing?" Kang considered for a moment. "Does it matter? Their technology is real. That moon is still gone. Whether they had 3 ships or 300, the risk was too great." "True," Jin agreed. "But I wonder about Captain Park." There was something in her eyes when she signed the treaty. A relief that seemed excessive for someone holding all the power. "A skilled negotiator," Kang suggested. "Perhaps." Jin wasn't convinced. "I'd ask our science division to continue studying the remains of that moon. There may be more to learn about this Project Sunburst." On the journey back to Earth, the crew of the Retribution celebrated their success. The small mess hall was filled with laughter and stories of home. To Captain Park, Science Officer Yan said, raising a cup, "Who bluffed the mighty hegemony into peace?" "It wasn't entirely a bluff," Park reminded them with a small smile. "The Sunburst device worked exactly as designed." "Yes, but they think we have 12 more," said Engineer Choi, grinning, "and 3 Phantom ships ready to deploy them." "Speaking of which," said Lieutenant Han, "how did you know they'd detect that signal near Saran?" "The probe was so small." "I didn't," Park admitted. "But I knew they'd be looking very hard for any sign of confirmation. Sometimes people find what they're desperately searching for, even when it's barely there." Later, alone in her quarters, Park recorded her official mission log. "Final entry," she began. "The Treaty of Mutual Recognition has been signed. Humanity has secured its independence without the full-scale war Earth Command feared. The Retribution is returning home with all crew members safe and the remaining Sunburst devices intact." She paused, considering her next words carefully. "I must note for the record my belief that the Hegemony Council suspects our deception, particularly regarding the existence of additional human vessels. However, the demonstration of the Sunburst technology was sufficient to convince them that the cost of war would be too high, regardless of our actual numbers." Park closed her eyes briefly before continuing. "I also believe War Minister Choi's unauthorized attack was a calculated test of our capabilities. The ease with which the Retribution's shields repelled their weapons may have inadvertently reinforced our position of strength." She looked out at the stars streaking past her window. "The treaty will hold, not because of trust, but because of fear. And perhaps in time, fear will give way to respect, and respect to genuine peace. This is Captain Hannah Park of the HSS Retribution, completing mission single ship." 2 weeks later, the Retribution approached Earth. The small bridge crew fell silent as the blue planet came into view. "Open a channel to Earth Command," Park ordered. General Kim's face appeared on screen. "Captain Park, the President is waiting to speak with you, but first, did they believe you?" Park smiled. They believed enough, General. And the sunburst device. It worked perfectly, perhaps too perfectly. Initial readings suggest the quantum disruption is still spreading at the test site. Science Officer Yan recommends no further tests. Kim nodded grimly. Understood. The President will want a full briefing, including everything you learned about hegemony defenses while in their space. Of course, Park replied. But there's something more important that they should know. What's that, Captain? The hegemony isn't evil, just afraid. They've ruled without challenge for so long that our mere existence threatens them. Understanding that fear was the key to our success. Kim considered this. You sound almost sympathetic. Not sympathetic, Park corrected. Realistic. If we're to maintain this peace, we need to understand our neighbors as well as our weapons. As the Retribution entered Earth orbit, Park stood at the viewport watching her homeworld grow larger. The mission had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. One ship had accomplished what an entire fleet might have failed to do. But as relief